Hi and welcome. My name is Tolan and I'm the co-founder of Productivity Me. In this video, we're going to go ahead and look at the idea of freezing and unfreezing panes. More specifically, we'll discuss 3 ways to freeze and unfreeze panes. We'll look at freezing your top row, look at freezing your leftmost column, as well as freezing any group of columns or rows that you so choose. So with that, let's get started. Now, we have been working throughout this course with a series of data called Employee Reference Sheet. If you want to follow along in this video, go ahead and download the exercise file 10.02 and you'll have the same set of data that we have on screen. Now, in this example, let's go ahead and demonstrate the purpose of if you have just a range and you were to scroll down, then your top row would disappear. Now, if your top row is a series of labels, that could be a little bit frustrating because maybe you don't remember what all of these individual columns are. Let's imagine that you had a scenario where you had additional entries. So not only do you have employee ID, their first and last name, their full name, but maybe you have things like their status, whether they're full-time or contractor, as well as their phone number and their cell phone number. So if we were to have this information in a table, let's go ahead and select this and then go to Insert Table. Okay. One of the advantages of having a table is that there's automatically scrolling so that when you scroll down, the labels scroll with you. Now, if this was just arranged like we have here in Employee Reference Sheet Extend, when we scroll down, we kind of lose that ability to see those labels. However, there is a solution in Microsoft Excel and it's called freezing. The way that you would freeze panes is by going to the View tab. Once you're on the View tab, you would go to Freeze Panes, which is in the Windows group here. You go to Freeze Panes, and then once you have that selected, you can either choose Freeze Panes, Freeze Top Row, or Freeze First Column. If you want to freeze the first column, you would go ahead and select that. And then once you have that selected, when you scroll over to the right, you would always have that column which was shown. Now, an alternative to that would be to go and unfreeze that first pane. So you would select this choice here. And then once you've unfrozen that individual column, you can also choose to freeze your top row. So currently, if we scroll down, the row will not follow us. If you wanted to, you could go ahead and freeze the top row. So freezing the top row would mean that if and when you wanted to scroll down, you could scroll down and that row would follow you. Now, a third option would be to freeze multiple columns and multiple rows. So if you want to freeze multiple columns and multiple rows, you'd place your active cell in between the columns that you want to freeze. So let's say that we want to freeze here the employee ID and the name, as well as the top 2 rows. So we would then place it here in row C3. Placing it here in C3, we then go to Freeze Panes, and then you'll notice that those top 2 rows are always going to be frozen, and then these first 2 columns would also be frozen. So if we scroll over, they would be frozen there. Now, what you can do is you can go ahead again here to freeze or unfreeze panes, and then select unfreeze. If that was the case, then you'd be able to go ahead and unfreeze those. And now when you scroll down, those rows will disappear. And then when you scroll over, those columns will disappear. So in essence, that is how you might think about freezing and unfreezing panes. In summary, you can freeze either the top row very easily by going to the View tab and then going to Freeze Top Row, or you can unfreeze it by going to Unfreeze Panes. Secondly, you can freeze the first column, which would appear like that. Or you can freeze a series of columns and rows. Let's say that you wanted to freeze your top first 1, 2, 3, 4, top 4 rows, and then your top 4 columns. So you would place it here in row, cell E5. Placing it there in E5, you would say freeze panes, and then those top 4 rows would scroll, and those first 4 columns would scroll. So that is freezing panes. In our next video, and better than growing panes, right? Freezing panes is hard, but growing panes is often even harder. All right, I apologize for that joke. But in the next video, we'll look at splitting screens, which could be fun too. It's slightly different, and we'll discuss how you can use splitting screens and why you might want to in Microsoft Excel. So join us for that, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.